Hello. So we are in this creator economy, also influencer marketing. It's one of the things by these days. But what is this? How can we make it? How we can, for instance, monetize our knowledge, our expertise, our community as well? These questions and some others will be answered in a moment by Mitchell. So stay there to another episode of the Special Marketing Live Show. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of the Special Marketing Live Show. This is the last one from this season, the 25th episode. I don't know which season is, but that's life. So, this will be the last episode, and we will get back in September with more guests, with more episodes, with more knowledge. And today it's time to talk about something that lately it's really interesting and important for me, which is creator economy and also influencer marketing. This could be a nice way for you to maybe make some money, maybe to understand a new and different approach to business, a new and different approach for social media. Is not just about little cats or your you dancing. Okay, so I'm gonna bring my guest and let me see if I don't mess with his name, Michel Bonaccorso. I think this surname sounds a little bit Italian. So he is in the basement. Let me see if it's ready to join. One, two, three. Hello.
Hello, Marco. Thanks so much for having me, especially on the last episode of this season. Very excited to be here, and you said it correctly, and really happy to be here to talk about the creator economy.
Thank you so much for joining. I let me give some context about why you are here. First, because I'm a creator, so I want to know a little bit more about creator economy and how we can also talk about influencer marketing. And mostly because I saw you in that show with Rob Balasabas, and I thought, oh my God, I need to bring Mitchell. So thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure. And I think we will be closing this season with a golden key, like we like to say here in Portugal.
Mhm.
So, Mitchell, if you don't mind to introduce yourself so people can get to know you a little bit better, and then we go into the conversation.
For sure. First things first, shout out Rob, really good guy. So check out him as well. And
Absolutely.
again, Marco, yeah, thanks for having me. So my name is Mitchell Bonaccorso. I'm the brand partnerships manager here at Creator. I've been representing micro influencers, micro celebrities for about 7 years now. I began working on small projects such as media kits. And since then, just been representing creators of all sorts. And now I'm happy to share that I'm working on the brand side, connecting brands to content creators at scale. So, how can we get brands connected to over 50 content creators a month? And similarly, we also have a community of over 140,000 content creators on our website where content creators every day are finding brands looking for ambassadors to share their product. So, it's a great place to be, great timing. And speaking of, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of Amazon, but really excited about what Amazon's doing. It's another big player in this space entering the industry, and there's a lot of momentum with live selling, which is ultimately what we're looking for in terms of brands and influencers is conversion. So it's no surprise to see Amazon is interested in that and tapping into that. So again, Marco, thanks for having me, and looking forward to this discussion.
Thanks to you. So, I think, as you said, first things first, let's think. And this being an influencer, it's kind of a buzzword and also a trend. Uh, fashion. I don't know. Um, Sometimes we have this not so good idea about what an influencer is. So, having in mind your knowledge, your experience with brands, because I think this is what we want in this. It's what I want in this conversation.
Mhm.
Is for the brand, what actually is an influencer?
That's a great question, Marco. And you're right. There's a lot of different nuances that come with establishing the definition of influencer. In terms of brands, an influencer is someone that can speak to their product. I always like to bring it back to what word of mouth marketing is. And it's basically a 2022 version of that, right? So before you make a purchasing decision, you need to know about a brand. And what we always say around here at Creator is you're not just sitting on your couch and think, oh, I need that particular pair of headphones, but say you've seen it from some of your friends online, that's actually part of the decision. So, our CEO here at Creator.co uses the example of Fitbit all the time. So he used to be a buyer at Best Buy for Fitbit, and he realized real quick that a big reason. I don't know, if you or your viewers are fans of wearable technology, but if you're familiar with that industry, Fitbit's actually one of the leading players in the space, but Fitbit doesn't have all the bells and whistles that Garmin does. I'm personally a Garmin fan myself, but the reason why so many people were purchasing Fitbit was because of the influencers sharing, right? So, in terms of what's important for uh, an influencer and a brand is really just sharing the product, sharing the value, and connecting the product to more people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is something that I think it's important as well. And if I wanted to start today my influencer journey, which three tips would you give to that person? I like Mitchell. Today I want to become an influencer. Okay, and this is a tricky question. Let me say it. Which three tips would you give to me?
Great question, Marco. Focus on your why. Focus on the content that is important to you. There are a lot of functional tips and tricks on how to become an influencer, such as posting regularly, posting in high quality. But there's always cases where people do not follow those two criteria and become a successful influencer, which is why I like to focus on the basics and encourage and empower content creators to focus on what is important to them. So if you like reviewing sneakers, review sneakers. If you like gardening, garden. If you're into home decor, dial into that niche. The reason why that's so important is if you don't follow that, what you're doing is setting yourself up to have a career in something that you're not passionate about. So very often people will follow vanity metrics for a series of time, and then 2 years into it, they have a bunch of engagement on something they're not too passionate about. And that's when you see burnout, you see content that doesn't feel as authentic, and then people are turned off about the whole creator experience. So, remember why you started, remember what gets you excited about content creating, do that, and then brands will come to you because they will see that you have that positioning, that uniqueness, to be able to create good content and good partnerships.
That's a nice question, a nice answer. Sorry, because this is something that I've been asked sometimes because before I getting into my cave to just create content, I was a speaker too,
Yep.
and sometimes I went to speak to young people. Okay, those that this influencer thing, it's uh, this bright thing and gold thing that they want to pursue and become, and they ask me which fields would you think would be a thing to become an influencer? And
Yep.
this was for me like a scratchy question
Yep.
because I tend to reply the same way you did, because this is what makes sense for me.
Yep.
There's this thing: talk about things that you're passionate about.
Exactly. It's so important because if you don't do that, you're not actually going to create any momentum. We know for a fact that your creativity lies in what you're passionate about. So, if you're focused on things you're not passionate about, there's enough content creators. There's enough people posting stories of their food or of their walk in the park, and that's fine, right? We use social media to connect, but if you want to stand out in all the noise, you're going to have to really dial in your own strategy, and what that typically looks like is being passionate about um, what you're working on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because one of the things, and let's make this kind of objective, because sometimes and I think there's this thing about social media that sometimes we get a little bit in the clouds. So
Yeah.
let's put a feet on land, because I don't believe that a brand which works seriously this influencer marketing thing would want to put their coins in an influencer that talks about everything,
Hmm.
which by the end of the day it's nothing,
Yep.
and kind of they lay the conversation in. I like this because it's nice, because it's good, without providing the real insight about why do they like that product. And sometimes it's good, and this is something that I don't have any problems doing, because this is how I think things should be,
Hmm.
saying maybe if you want this is not the right product.
Exactly. Yeah, the authenticity part is super important. But one thing, Marco, you just reminded me of is that say you have a variety of content, you still can. So on the flip side of things, you can post anything that's important to you. If you feel it's not directly up your alley, I still would encourage you to post it. I wouldn't want anyone to view this and think that they have to have one sole content messaging. What I will say now, that which your comment just reminded me of, is one thing that brands are very interested in is your ability to take the campaign seriously. So when we talk to brands and they're looking for content creators, it's actually not so much about the niche that they're interested in. They're interested in, will that content creator make content for me that will convert? And say you're a beginner or you're just getting into the space, what I would recommend is take those content briefs seriously. I see campaign and content briefs pass my desk every day, from our influencer managers to the brand, and the ones that go the extra mile, the content creators that outline what their content will look like, always get activated because the brand is impressed to see. So, in terms of what that would look like, maybe it's a PowerPoint, maybe it's a media kit, maybe it's a PDF. And as someone who kind of began my career in this space making media kits for content creators, it's true. If you can, introduce yourself to a brand and have an idea of what your content will look like, it won't matter necessarily your previous work. Your previous work will matter, but user generated content is a huge trend now, which means that the brands are not so focused on the content that lives on the influencer's page. They're realizing that they can actually take advantage of the actual video assets themselves and post them on their native channels. So this is creating a big, a big boom in the industry because now brands don't have to pay for this advertising. They're actually just paying for the video assets akin to media agencies or any other content production agencies because they know that the content creators take the content just as serious as the companies with the professional cameras. So I would always recommend that you take the content brief seriously for content creators because if you have a variety of content that may not be applicable to this brand, that's okay. That's okay. The brand will still like your work as long as you outline that and make them excited about it too.
You made me think about something. um, when it's the right time for us as content creators to knock at brand doors
Yeah.
asking for deals,
Yeah.
because this is one of the $1 million questions.
Yes. It is the $1 million question, Marco. You're completely right. You want to knock on doors that are important to you. Again, going back to finding your why, but you also want to make sure that when you appear in front of those brands, you're ready to go. You're ready to have those conversations. I think this is why so many content creators opt to have some form of talent manager. Sure, maybe not in the beginning years, but I think that there's a lot of insights into why the successful content creators do have talent managers. And the reason why is because eventually it actually becomes such a serious lift for the team. And what I mean by that is you're going to have to handle negotiations with rates, negotiations with content, discussing deliverables. So when you're knocking on those doors, just stay organized, stay intentful, make sure you know why you're looking to collaborate with that brand. Submit your content brief and show up at your best self. Be excited to work with the brand, and that's fine. I wouldn't hesitate to knock on extra doors. You never know what will happen, at those interactions. You may not immediately guarantee a partnership. You may not immediately impress the brand, but now they have your contact details. And maybe in a couple months, I've seen that happen all the time. I would send out media kits from content creators that I manage 1 month, and then 4 months later, they would get an invitation to actually partner with them. So that's how it works, right? So, send out your business cards, your media kit, and stay top of mind, just like how brands are looking to stay top of mind in their own field.
Perfect. And we have a comment here from Field Economist, relevant
Yes.
topic, always providing super valuable content. Thank you so much, Pedro.
Shout out Pedro. Awesome. Good to see.
So let me go a little bit further in this. Okay, we have, as content creators, we have our content, which could speak for us, but
Yeah.
I think it's not enough. What do you think we should have in our box to approach brands in the right or perfect, if you can say so, way?
You want to make it clear why you are different than other content creators. So your high performing posts, analytics from your posts, where you've been able to perform, how you've been able to speak to other products will be appealing to brands. So brands are going to check out your social page, they're going to check out your website, they're going to check out your analytics, see what you did in previous collaborations, and from there they're going to make a decision. I would ultimately say that they're going to remember who you are, maybe not so much what you post. So it's important to always kind of think holistically when you look at your content and think, what impression am I leaving brands? Do I make brands excited about fitness? Do I make them excited about gaming? Um, and subsequently, is that an interesting factor for your audience? And if it is, the brand will be even more enticed because they know that your audience is ready to go. They know about your topic and you're a key opinion leader in that vertical.
Great, great. And this gives me another question.
Yeah, of course.
Because let me share my experience. I'm not a tech guy, okay? I'm a marketing guy
Yeah,
which needed to create his own content. Okay. Suddenly I felt in this live streaming thing. I've been doing this since 2015, so I think I learned a few things, but I'm not a tech guy. I'm not an audio engineer, a videographer, a photographer. So I'm not. I can't by now, at least, even though I've been doing this homework, learning, for instance, best microphones, whatever. But I won't go. I This is something that will never do. Like finding this. So tiny thing, the difference about sound, for instance, like audio engineers.
yeah,
But the thing is, my perspective is this as well. Probably some buyers, they are like me. They don't have those that so sensitive uh, ear or that sensitive eye, which will find the difference. But they want someone like them which already tried the product that probably they want to take a look and they want to buy, and then maybe this is why I don't want to go that technical, but keeping in mind also my
Hmm.
background.
Hmm.
Do you have these kind of requests from brands like, okay, I want a more technical profile, or I want a more, how can I say, a broader profile? I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. Brands always have particular interests. We've worked with an array of what I would say are idiosyncratic particularities, such as wardrobe. Some brands only want to work with particular content creators wearing a certain wardrobe, or have only posted about a particular thing, or have never done sponsored posts before, which is why I think it's so important to have a campaign manager who's going to be able to vet those things. Now, in terms of on the creator's end, I think that I wouldn't stress so much about which brands are excluding you based on particular things, because that's a little bit of a trap, because you can't appeal everyone, and particularly the
Absolutely.
brands. I would actually challenge that idea and say that it's really important to focus on your audience before the brands. The brands will come and go. The audience is what you've spent years working for. And I think that's why a lot of high performing content creators are reluctant to sell out so much now, because they realize that churning your audience is a very bad idea. The moment you start making people unfollow you because of paid collaborations, you're just going to continue to fall down the algorithm. So I think that's a great question. Which is basically, are you seeing brands have particularities with recruiting? 100%. And that's a whole other conversation on the brand's end, because, I sometimes have to consult brands and be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be so concerned about if a content creator has worn a tank top in their previous posts, and maybe you should just kind of focus on maybe who they are as a content creator themselves. But that's the brand, right? They're going to look for, it's just like hiring employees. Particular teams have different interests, and you work with that. So, I definitely, if for those content creators watching, definitely don't stress particular brand guidelines. There's always going to be another brand, and to be honest, this is why so many content creators are now making their own brand, because instead of partnering with brands that are micromanaging how they want to make their content, instead they're realizing that they could just create their own.
Good, good. This is that's what I thought.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we have two questions from Pedro. First
Yeah,
one: are brands using platforms to evaluate creators? Can you give
yes.
us some examples?
Yes. I'm just going to close the blinds, Marco, because as you can see, there's some light right here. So
Okay,
please
no
hold
problem.
down
I
the
can
fort
dance
for
meanwhile.
20 seconds.
By the way, if you are watching and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, because this will get more insightful with your collaboration too. So feel free to put your questions. If you don't have any questions or doubts, you can just say hello. Okay. Or you can share this conversation with someone who may need. So we have Mitchell back.
Yes, and could you remind me the first name of
Okay.
the question again? From Pedro. Hello, Pedro.
Pedro, yes.
Yep, I think brands are definitely using platforms to evaluate creators. An example would be Creator.co, which is the company that I'm fortunate to represent here today. There's a lot of different vendors that are connecting brands to content creators. I would say that, this is a big discussion in itself, which is, how are brands interacting with creators? And the keywords here for companies that are interested in this are creator management. Now, creator management, there's a lot of different factors that go into creator management, such as analytics, recruiting, dashboards, software as a service systems. But at its core, platforms are created and are supposed to be used to create good relationships with content creators. Now, the software is getting better at this. There's automation where brands can automatically message hundreds of influencers within one day, but at its core, there's still this whole industry hasn't been industrialized yet. One day, probably. That's why you're seeing TikTok move towards creator marketplaces. That's why you're seeing Instagram making creator marketplaces, because these businesses are realizing very quickly that companies like Creator.co are using their platform to generate business. And what's happening is on Creator.co, you can post in, as a brand, you can post an advertisement along with having an influencer manager who can contact content creators on your behalf. So these platforms are brilliant for being able to give you more bandwidth to connect to content creators. And I think it's important to realize why these platforms began in order to answer the question. The reason why these platforms began is because brands didn't have the capacity or the bandwidth to manage 50 creators in 1 month. Because in order to manage 50 content creators in 1 month, you have to answer a lot of questions, you have to stay on top of them, you have to ship them the product, and you have to make sure the content is good. So platforms are very important ingredient in an influencer marketing strategy, but at its core, the only things that you need are charisma, empathy as an influencer manager, an email account, and an Excel sheet. Platforms make that all easier for you.
Great, great, nice. And we have another question.
Yes.
Concerning business to business brands, do you feel they have already bought the importance of influencer marketing?
Yeah, I think B2B brands are entering the influencer marketing space. It's becoming more and more utilized on B2B. Obviously, the majority of influencer marketing happens at the D2C level because it's easier. In terms of B2B, though, what you're seeing a lot more of is internal champions, internal influencers. A lot more businesses are empowering their employees to make content. Here, even in our office, one of our we encourage our employees at all levels to make content on LinkedIn and TikTok and share their experience working at creator.co, which I would consider as a B2B influencer because now we're trying to, it's an HR play as well. In terms of PR as well, in terms of B2B exclusively, you can, right? I mean, for example, I would say that even in this podcast right now, I'm essentially acting as a B2B influencer as I represent my company, and you see that happen more and more in this industry.
Great, great. Let's talk a little bit about creator.co.
For sure, yes.
Because one of the things I've been facing since I came to this creator world is knocking at brand's door
Hmm.
and get the door open.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
how can a platform, a company like Creator, help me?
So a company like Creator would be able to help you by streamlining the process of knocking on doors that are unresponsive. So the only campaigns that are currently live at creator.co/collaboration hub are brands that are actively looking for content creators. So as opposed to going to brands who it'd be like going to apply to jobs without job postings. There's certainly a chance you can get a job there, but you're
Yeah.
more likely to get a job that has a job posting, right? And there's actually a couple insights here. In terms of the former case where you're applying to a job with no job posting, you would essentially be looking for a foot in the door, which is that same process is possible at the brand end. You can message brands that don't have exactly, Pedro. Employee advocacy is a great example. Maybe not so much B2B because you're essentially it's employee to employee, but yeah, that's a great point. So when we're outreaching brands, I can put my talent manager hat back on and kind of speak to how I was able to identify opportunities for content creators I was working with is you have to follow up. Just like how influencer managers have to follow up with content creators to get them excited to work for a brand. As a content creator, you have to schedule follow-up emails. I wouldn't quit on a brand until you've sent at least 12 emails. There is so much noise in the space right now. You have to stand out. Now, best practices on top of that is make sure that your messaging is short, concise, and value driven. If you're able to make it real clear what you're looking for, they'll pass your email on to the right person, and then you'll be able to get a collaboration in the works.
Great, great. Just let me give you an example, something that I do often. And so you can tell me if this is a right approach. For instance, I grab my Amazon reports, I see which brands are performing better,
Yep.
and then I reached out to them and said, "Look, I've sold this amount in your products, but I think we can do this even better."
Yep. Yeah. That's a great strategy.
But even like that, it's hard to get some attention. I think I should be doing this more repeatedly,
Yes.
so they, boring them like okay, they need to answer, so I can give up.
Yep, exactly. And even when they answer, even if they say a temporary no, it's not stopping you from, asking why. What are you looking for? And that sometimes can be a way to open up the conversation. I think the fact that you've identified a way to introduce yourself to a brand is excellent. Sourcing or citing previous sales is an amazing way to get your foot in the door. What I can probably predict is that the high performing products that are also part of companies that have great revenue to begin with, even on top of your sales. So they have a lot of other things that they're busy on. But this being said, it's not stopping you from also making additional content on different channels and then linking them, tagging them, making comments that is, addressing them so that eventually they have no choice but to see you, right? I know an influencer that has every time they fly with a particular airline, they hashtag Rob seat. And it wasn't until like 6 months after he began posting hashtag Rob seat that the airline actually saw those content and extended an invitation to partner with him. So sometimes it's definitely a consistent play, but the good news is that you can do this with a series of brands simultaneously while following your passion. So whatever content creation in your case, it's having the marketing show, it's sharing product knowledge. You can continue to do that and those brands are going to come. There is a little bit of a compounding curve as part of this process, but that's the nature of the creator economy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned that. Let me ask, because okay, even though in a wider and big market like the one we live right now, I don't think this competition would be that ferocious. But for you, it's better to focus like in, even when we talk in our shows, in few brands, or go wider or broader about it. Because, and I think we can see this in two perspectives, like our viewers, oh, this person is talking about everything, I don't know, or brands, well, he's talking about our competitors, I don't know if I want to work with him or her.
Yeah, that does happen. Sometimes brands do disqualify content creators based on competitors, but again, I'd say that's the nature of the beast. That happens. There's not really much we can do about that. What I would recommend is continue to extend invitations to work with other brands at the same time. I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate that that's the case, but it's just like employers, right? That they may see if you've worked in particular companies and disqualify you as such. I think that there's only going to be more brands. Well, I can definitely testify that there are new brands entering this space every day. You almost could say that there's more brands entering this space at this point than content creators per day because content creators have been a thing for 10 years now, whereas brands are just figuring out how important it is to partner with content creators. So there's always beginner brands. Anytime a brand kicks off, those are the type of brands that I would really focus on outreaching. And you can do that by looking at advertisements as well, right? I can give some insight into how we're prospecting brands to partner with us as we see advertisements happen all the time. We know for a fact that since the iOS privacy updates, there's been a lot harder time for advertisers to connect to their audience. So now they're picking back the phone up and calling places like creator.co and saying, "Hey, I think we're interested in influencer marketing now." And the reason why is because their ad dollars are only going up. Google only wants them to put more money in their ad spend, Facebook the same. And they're not getting content from that. Sure, they may be getting conversion, but eventually, what you end up with is a bunch of conversion in an organic profile that looks extremely beginner. If you have under 10,000 followers on Instagram, creators are going to actually give you higher rates to work with, which is not good for you in the long term. So you have brands like Pura Vida out of San Diego. Their whole strategy is based on micro influencers, and they have teams where they've worked with over, I think it's like 100,000 micro influencers, and they specifically are looking for content creators under the 5K range because they know that it's authentic. They know that when someone sees that post, they're not going to think it's an advertisement. They're going to know it's a piece of content.
Great. And I made this question because this has a flip side. Because, and I talk about myself, because, for instance, not everybody in my audience can buy this microphone or a Shure SM7B. Some
Yeah.
just want a microphone to make a couple of Zoom calls per week.
Yep.
So it doesn't make much sense for them to buy an expensive microphone. Or, for instance, there's people that the space where they are, because they are acoustic treated, so they would not, it's not appropriate to buy this kind of microphone. Maybe it's better to, so this is why I don't want to keep like talking about just one product or one brand, because this will be narrowing my the choices I would be bringing to my audience, and this is something that for me it's important too. What do you think about this approach?
So are you basically asking like what are your thoughts on having particular equipment? Is that what you're getting at?
And having a kind of a broad uh,
Broad.
range
Yep.
of products that
Yep.
can kind of suit each need and what they, because one thing is what I need, what another it's what I can get, and the other is what it's better for me.
Yes, for sure. I think this reminds me mostly of the conversations that what you're seeing now is brands are hiring only iPhone videographers. So I actually began, in the media space being a cinematographer myself. So I was behind the camera, I was directing people in front of the camera, and the equipment 5, 10 years ago used to be extremely important. You had to have a DLSR, you had to have a full frame, you had to have this FPS and this thing and that adapter and this piece of equipment. But then all of a sudden, you saw someone pop up on your For You page that made an edit with their iPhone that has 6 million views. And there's no correlation with equipment there, right? So it's really the actual creation that's most important compared to the equipment behind itself. So I think that this kind of just raises the topic of equipment for content creators. I wouldn't stress it. If you only have an iPhone, even an iPhone 6, just run it. It's going to be great. In fact, there's actually growing communities where they celebrate using particular types of equipment. So if you look up like hashtag iPhone videography, there's a series of very high performing influencers that only use the iPhone, that are beating out cinematographers every day. Right. So we always kind of we used to make a joke in the community where you would see someone have a very expensive camera and then you'd say, where are you posting that? And a lot of times they would just be posting that on their channels with not too much engagement and things like that. Yet there would be a 17-year-old making an iPhone content, very very high performing. So focus on, again, going back to where we started in the beginning of this podcast. It's like focus on what you're creating. It's way more productive for you to focus on how you're going to connect to your audience versus how you're going to record or film your content.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this reminds me about something that I wrote last year at the end of the year, because I don't know if you know Ross Brand. It's a guy who is active. live streamer, and he has this book, 100 predictions on live streaming and digital media, and he asked me to share my prediction.
Yes.
And I mentioned the people like me approach, and which is a blend between live streaming, word of mouth, and influencer marketing. And this is leading us to live shopping and, for instance, Amazon Live. Do brands realize the power of this? Are they willing to work with influencers, which, for instance, do live shopping? Or is this a kind of wild territory?
Oh, Marco, I would agree with your prediction for the record. Let the record be clear that I think that social selling on live streaming will be the future of influencer marketing. Do I think that we're there yet or it's on the horizon? No. The reason why I think that it's not on the immediate horizon is because I speak to brands every day and I know for a fact that they're still confused at even entering the creator economy to begin with, that the idea of selling on live streams is so foreign to them at this point. But this being said, there are markets taking full advantage of this, as you and your teams know. When you look at the Asian marketplaces, the Asian markets, you are seeing way more content creators use live selling. It's I was talking last night about this to some of my team members because I was talking about coming here and I was explaining to them how important live stream selling is going to be in the next few years. And I pulled up some channels again in the Asian markets, and you would see sales just flying off the rack. So I think it's a little bit of a culture thing, right? I was explaining it's kind of like an infomercial. A lot of in that market, they're excited about buying live, whereas here we're still a little slow. We like to click on the link, click on the coupon code, follow the UTM link, get in a couple weeks. And brands are fine with that. They're having a hard time keeping up with 40 influencer sales, whereas in other markets, they're looking at like 400 in an hour. So I agree with your prediction. I think it's going to be some time to get there. I'm passionate about getting brands there because I know that it's going to increase conversion. But right now, my main focus is just getting brands, excited about working with creators to begin with. But I agree with your prediction.
And are they aware of Amazon Live? Because
Yep.
for some people, this is what? There's
Yes.
an Amazon Live thing, or even Amazon Creator Program. Do they know? Are they willing to work with it?
The brands that I'm talking to, which are typically anywhere from young to mature brands, anywhere from, one head count to, 150, have been in the marketplace for 6 months, 6 years. Most brands have not brought up Amazon creators or Amazon selling to me yet. That's just factually speaking what I can report on. But this being said, I know for a fact that it's going to be the future because if Amazon's interested in it, if Amazon, I was reviewing some content last night and going through products and YouTube videos on the space, and it's super exciting what Amazon is going to do here. And the potential is ridiculous because when you look at what's happening on Instagram and TikTok, for example, on TikTok, there's not even a link in bio that you can click to go to the page, and then there are some purchasing, and I know TikTok's working on that, but it's not an immediate conversion. If you wanted to just throw your money at the phone, you couldn't in some cases. And with Instagram too, Instagram obviously in the last years added shopping natively on the app, but look how long it took them to do that. Whereas like Amazon has this all integrated in one spot. It's just going to take some time to get what I would say is the audience on Amazon. So if I was someone focused on Amazon streaming, I would focus, how can I get my audience that lives on TikTok and Instagram? How can I get them watching my Amazon Live? What do I have to do to make people excited about that? And that's where I would get into gamifying the whole process, using incentives, using additional discount codes, which is really what Amazon creators are already doing. So I think it's just going to take some time for adoption, but definitely the future.
Absolutely, I think because I have this example. One of the products I reviewed on on Amazon, and usually I like to make multi-streaming. Okay, I go simultaneously live on Amazon and also on YouTube, also because of people who steal videos. So
Yeah.
mine it's already there. So if someone tries to upload it, it will be striked.
Yes. Yes.
but the thing is, one of the videos I made about a product,
Hmm.
and some people even commented, it's the first review I see about this microphone. And
Exactly.
but the thing is, it's not generating conversions on YouTube. Even though the link is there, people are looking for that particular review. I'm not getting sales from that. So I think YouTube could be a nice place for branding or
Hmm.
awareness,
Yep.
but not as good for conversion.
Yeah. Yep. There's a lot of nuances and considerations when you look at YouTube for sure, right? YouTube is the home of long-term partnership. It's the home of in video halfway through, whether it's a actual native video integration or it's an actual overlay ad. I mean, they do things differently. Google has their own ideas of what partnerships look like, without a doubt. I think that you're onto something too, but what I would consider the insight here is make sure you have a holistic strategy when it comes to using YouTube, using Amazon, using your TikTok to increase your conversion. I think that the fact that customers are already identifying your review as being the reason or part of their decision power is huge. Like the amount of potential you have to leverage that and also do the same for other products so that people know they can go to Marco Novo for product reviews is extremely exciting. So, yeah, I might not be leading to conversions yet, but again, back to this is the nature of the beast. And one of these times, your review is going to be the reason why so many people are buying, and then that brand's going to outreach you and you're going to have your own partnership lined up.
Well, good. Because I think, again, this is my marketing background. Because, and I faced this recently about the branding thing, and I think that brands should be aware of this too. When a brand reaches all that, like we say here in Portugal, every influencer that moves, instead of focusing, okay, this he's talking about the niche where I want to be, instead of going broader. And by the way, let me put the question, because I think that some brands, they need to be educated as well, because, oh, I want influencers with a big following or a big engagement, instead of I want influencer that, a, can bring and give a nice and insightful information about my product,
Yep.
like educating people about the product, how they can use it, how they should not use it, and also which have the right audience for my products.
Yeah.
And I think that some, they may want to go broader, because they want like being the shining star in not focusing on what it's really important. Do you need to make this education thing as well?
You're familiar with MKBHD, Marco? You know
Nope.
MKBHD, Marcus Brownlee. So he's a tech reviewer, and I've
Oh,
been
yes,
following
yes,
him.
yes, yes,
Yes,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
I think that this is a great example, right? So he's been reviewing products of all sorts for what, like 15 years now. I remember growing up, and he used to make like a hypercam video of how to do tutorials, and I think that he always just kind of followed his passion. So now he's like reviewing Tesla cars and things like that. So and, I think it's an important question to be able to like, oh, should I, put all my chips in one basket? Just go with the flow. Work with the brands that are important to you, and if you have to adjust based on particular things, then so be it. But I think MKBHD, it reminds me so much of how he's went from reviewing software to doing how-to tutorials to how to make websites. Now he's reviewing Tesla cars. Like he has like official Tesla collaborations where he's sitting down with engineers and working with them. So I think that I would never, just like how they always say, don't base your decisions on others' opinions. I would say that that is very important for your content creation too. In some way or the other, we're all artists, we're all content creators, so it's important to stay true. And yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about you know you being over particular. And I wouldn't be concerned.
Okay, sounds sounds good. Yes, and I I can talk about my experience too because
Yeah.
yes, I approach brands which sell microphones, webcams, cameras, lights, but also because I go to the gym. This is something. For instance, I made it 1 hour ago. I I bought a lifting belt,
Yep.
and in within I don't know maybe 3 months I've sold 80 something on Amazon. And
What was your campaign you did with them?
I didn't.
Okay.
I just bought the belt. I
Yeah.
made a short video on Amazon reviewing. In I didn't even use it in the gym. I was doing it. I made it here. The video I recorded where I am, and I sold lots of belts.
Wow.
So I I reached them
Yep.
and I look, your customer, and then I send him the report too.
Yep.
And I think a good sign is that the last reply I got was from his CEO. So I think this should be a good sign.
Yes. What I would recommend too in this case is you doing that to other fitness brands now, right? Now that you have this case study, like that's what I would focus on, introducing yourself to other brands. So you could, there's so many lifting belts too, as you know, I'm sure you saw when you were making that purchasing decision.
Yes.
So now you can outreach them and say, "Hey, look what I did off the cuff, what I did briefly for this brand. I would like to do a full detailed review for your brand with an initial fee of X, and based on sales, we'll do this." So I think now you can leverage this, and who knows? Before you know it, Marco, maybe you're the lifting gear review guy, right? So so before you know it, you may have to start outfitting that studio with some dumbbells and barbells and
Yes.
bands of sorts. But
I
yeah,
think
this is right.
I will rent the gym for 1 hour each
Exactly.
week
Yeah.
just to record videos.
Yeah, and this is kind of how it always happens, right? Like correct me if I'm wrong, but you were never a fitness reviewer per se, but now
Yes.
based on the fact of it's just fun. It's funny how this works out, right? Back to the nature of the beast. It's not your equipment that took off; it's a lifting bell, and that's just how it works. So you have the choice now of leaning into that, synergizing with that, making more content around that, or you could forget about it. But obviously, we really recommend that you focus on using this as a case study for other brands, right? Like that, from a brand end, for creator end, this is what we're always seeing. Brands are doing this where they're sharing success stories working with particular products, and then we're going to other supplement companies, cosmetic companies, and saying, "Hey, look what we did for this company here. We'd like to do the same for you." And then content creators are doing the same. They're working with supplements and then going to the other supplements. And now you have Amazon sellers, Amazon product reviewers who are able to do this too. So super exciting. Good for you for being able to tap into that. I think that speaks to you being first on the scene, but also not only first on the scene, but also creating quality content. So I think that you have the recipe now for success moving forward.
Okay. Perfect. So we are about to reach our time.
Yes.
I think it's good to share this because I'm a little curious as well. So I'm a content creator. Why should I knock at your door?
Like mine particularly, or any door.
Uh, your like finding an agency or a platform
Yeah.
which can link creators and brands.
Great question. I would say if you're a content creator and you're considering knocking on any door, you should knock on it. If it's an agency, if it's a brand, if it's another content creator themselves, take that leap, make that piece of content, connect with them, whatever it may be. If it's an agency, I think there's a lot of ways that you could work with collaboration hubs. In the case of creator.co, you could sign on, make an account in 2 minutes, and you would be able to see hundreds of brands that are looking for content creators. You could sort by filters such as niche, paid, location, etc. Whatever works for you. I would also encourage you to send your organic messaging, send those emails, schedule them so they're nice and early in the morning for the brands to see, when they're getting ready, having their coffee, this content creator pops up, they're looking. Follow up too, right? So don't, if you knock on the door once and no one's home, that means you got to knock on that door tomorrow and then the next day. So we're not going to stop until we hear from them and they say otherwise. And when we hear no, we get some feedback on how we can improve our pitch, how we can do things better. So um, I would encourage anyone considering to knock on doors, whether it's creator.co's doors or brands or other content creators. I think that, connecting to others is really foundational to this process.
Absolutely. I need to make this question because uh, in marketing world, mostly in digital, uh, they are killing everything all the time.
Yeah.
Like SEO is dead, email marketing is dead. Is influencer marketing dead too?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of changes in the industry when it comes to leveraging different areas. So you have PPC, you have SEO. What we're seeing though is that online users are becoming more aware of what is an ad and what is not an ad, right? This isn't like the initial boom of e-commerce where you could be just, researching the news and then, oh, what's this advertisement? Click, and then you're on this website purchasing. Now people have ad blockers, they know what's an ad. They're told they're growing up. The parents are telling their kids, "Hey, don't click on advertisements." Kids are getting smarter at knowing what an advertisement is. So I think that that's why influencer marketing is standing out, is because you're able to communicate to someone just like as if you're at a coffee shop or you're at the gym or you're at the basketball courts and you're talking to someone. You're like, hey, last night I picked up this new shoe. I like this new shoe, these new sunglasses. Oh, where'd you see it? Oh, I saw this content creator make it. So I think it's word of mouth on steroids. It's the digital version. I think that's a buzzword that this industry always uses, but it's true, right? We are encouraged by others, especially online. So SEO, PPC. And I may not be a traditional marketer. I definitely enjoy the home of influencer marketing. That's where I like to spend my time. But hey, if the more marketing strategies, the better. And I can tell you firsthand after consulting hundreds of brands in this space, the brands that have their SEO and PPC strategies dialed in will always have way easier time working with influencer marketing because their funnel is created. Influencer marketing, I am super passionate about influencer marketing. It can drive conversion without having other marketing initiatives, but there's no hiding from the fact that you need a full funnel. You need awareness, you need consideration, you need conversion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Really, really good. Well, Mitchell, last question. Where
Yes.
can people find you and
Awesome.
creator.co?
Yes, for sure, for sure. Well, first of all, check us out on creator.co. You can run a search for creator.co collaboration hub and you can see hundreds of campaigns that you could apply and work with. You can find me, Mitchell Bonaccorso, on LinkedIn, as well as mitchbond.com, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm all online. If you have any questions about influencer marketing, whether you're a content creator or a brand, I'm happy to help. I love talking to brands about influencer marketing. I've been doing this for some time now. So, Marco, thanks so much for having me on. This is a very insightful conversation. I can't wait to come back on the show in 2 years and we're telling everyone, hey, we told you so about our prediction for Amazon selling. So let's
It's
keep in
here.
touch. It's here. It's here. So I know we're the sky's falling guys right now, but in no time this will be the situation. So Marco, thanks so much for having me. Let's keep in touch. I hope you have a great rest of the week too.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
It's a pleasure. We will keep in touch.
Yes, 100%. Thanks so much, Marco.
Okay, you're welcome.
Take care.
So, thank you so much also to you who were watching the show. I will be back with this show September. Meanwhile, you can check my live shows on Amazon. Just type marketing.live and you will find me there. Okay. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much. See you later. Bye bye.